Welcome to another episode of the Life Matters podcast, where we discuss what life really is about because your life truly does matter. Here to my left, we have Dale, we have Pastor John, elders here at the church, at least a part of our elder board here at the church. And we've been going through a mini series now of breaking down barriers. So you're in the middle of that episode if you're watching this one now. And we talked about previously who was our neighbor, or how do we reach our neighbors with the gospel, breaking down those barriers. So today, I want to talk about are our neighbors just exclusively to you and me right here, right now, or what is that? Like, are my neighbors just here, or is that actually, is there a greater context of that? Break it down for us.
Yeah, so our mission statement, grow, love, reach. And we kind of describe that as reaching is, we say neighbors and nations, but the reality is neighbors extend to the nations. So sometimes we think of our neighbors just in a sense of the people who are physically close to us. And that is one application of that term, and certainly a healthy application in a general sense. But we also know that throughout Scripture, God called us to reach people beyond even physical boundaries. So last time we spent some time focusing on standard boundaries that we're going to encounter in life, culture, socioeconomics, life experience of the people that we're going to kind of just run into day to day. But I believe as we look at Scripture, we find a call beyond just reach the people who you happen to encounter.
Okay, so we're not just pulling this out in there.
Right. Yeah, it's not our idea, certainly.
Okay.
I think as we look at Scripture, we find just a consistency to both the commands of God, but also the experience of God's people, that we are called to reach beyond borders into the world to share the message of Christ so that others can experience the gospel and share the truth of God in a generic sense, so that people can experience what God is willing to do and what God is willing to provide into their lives. And so for us as a church, we kind of examine, what does that look like? For us as individuals, we examine, what does that look like? And for our approach to Scripture, I think we examine, how do we get there in the first place?
Okay, so let's start there. Okay. What is a New Testament example? I'm talking about book of Matthew 4 to the Revelation. Book of Revelation, not Revelations, Revelation.
No S.
Yeah. Whole nother topic.
Yeah, so another day, another time. Example, New Testament of going or understanding God's mission, His heart for the world.
So last time we did kind of talk about the Good Samaritan, and obviously we see, all right, there's already kind of this extending beyond just the normal borders, but in the story of the Good Samaritan, there is still a sense of they're walking the same path. They're in the same area. But throughout Jesus's ministry, early in his ministry, he was pretty exclusive to Galilee primarily, and he would kind of travel down to Jerusalem and Judea, the greater area down there. And so he kind of has this north and south kind of ministry. And every once in a while he does something that it's just like, okay, there is more to this. And so we see him cross the Sea of Galilee and heal a man who was possessed by a demon. And likely this man wasn't part of the nation of Israel.
That's a good point.
We see him go into Samaria, which is still kind of close in there. And to be fair, Jesus' ministry is primarily all in this range. But
not only that, but they would go out of their way to walk around Samaria.
Yeah.
That was, and so for him to go
other
through
people, right?
Other people would go. Jews would go around Samaria on purpose, and so to go through Samaria was a purposeful.
So Jesus, like, he's kind of breaking down that barrier, bringing a unity between the people of Israel and the people of Samaria, and so, but further, like, Jesus makes this comment. We referenced this last time. Jesus makes this comment to the woman at the well. There's going to be a day when we're all going to worship together.
That's right.
And then right there at the end of his life, and after his resurrection, he gathers his disciples together. And it's almost like, I kind of in my mind have it like the gun that starts the race. Like, when Mark gets set, boom.
Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
and he says, all right, go into all the world, make disciples of all nations, teaching them and baptizing them and telling them all that I've commanded you. And then he gives us this promise that he's going to be with them. And then he says, okay, I want you to go into Jerusalem, which is kind of their primary hub, and then Judea, which is kind of that region, and then Samaria, which is like, oh wait, this is now out of our comfort zone. But then he just used this as a generic term. This is Matthew 28:19. Go to all the nations. Go to the ends of the earth. Which ends of the earth I like, because obviously he's not talking about a physical. There's not like a drop-off point.
The earth is round.
Yes. There we go. Maybe we'll do one on why.
That's why there's a globe.
But to the ends of the earth is this colloquial phrase of like, go to the extent of where people are. Go wherever people are at.
Okay.
Get there. And there is this sense, some people kind of almost overstate. There is the sense of like going through these things. And so some people will just kind of turn it into like, well, as you're going, just wherever you're at, just kind of reach people that happen to be there. Jesus is describing an intentionality of getting to all people. Now, this is a command to the whole church, specifically the disciples first, but then to the whole church. So it doesn't mean like every single person has to get to every single nation and every single. We are limited, but as the church, the bride of Christ, we have this command to reach all people. And so we evaluate, okay, what is my role in that command, and how do I do that? And I think further on, maybe you want to hop into some of those. I think after Jesus, we see that start getting carried out.
Yeah. Philip is the one that immediately comes to my mind. Obviously,
Who's Philip?
Paul is
Who's
a very important person.
Who's Philip?
Philip is in Acts,
Okay.
and he comes in as one of the 7 deacons.
Okay.
They get brought in, and right after Stephen gets killed, who's one of the 7 deacons as well.
Wow.
They were set up to take care of the widows. As soon as that happens, there's this dispersion in Jerusalem, and so they kind of get pushed out because there's just a whole lot of conflict going on. Christians are getting killed, and so they get dispersed. And to John's point of like, the interesting part for Philip to me is he starts in Jerusalem, he gets pushed out into Judea, and then he follows the prompting of God to continue up the road, ends up in Samaria, and then ends
Where
up
a bunch of people get saved.
Yeah, where a bunch of people get saved, and then starts making his way back, and somehow ends up on the other side of Jerusalem, talking to an a eunuch. I don't know where in the world that word came from. Talking to a eunuch, which we actually talked about on a podcast at some point in time. And he gets baptized, and then he takes it back to Ethiopia. And so, like, it's this interesting, quick story that you kind of get Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth, all kind of back to back.
Okay. So this is great. Our missions. Are you about to say something, Joe?
I was just gonna kind of obviously, God takes something there. The church was thriving.
Oh yeah.
In Jerusalem, and it would have been easy for them to be like, "We did it! Like, we've got a big church, and they have thousands of people at that point." And God breaks it up, which is crazy to say. God breaks up the church because it would have been so easy for them to just kind of settle in, and so they have these deacons who are serving the church. They have these elders who are primary spiritual leaders of the church, and that's kind of how we structure ourselves here.
Now hold on. Now, why would God break up something that's going good?
Well, so it would have been so easy for them just to stay and just do the Jerusalem part,
Right.
or assume somebody else should take care of the ends of the earth part. And when this guy named Saul kind of comes in. He's young, he's excited, and he is a persecutor of the church.
Okay.
He does not like what's happening with this Jesus movement. And he holds the clothes of Stephen, who is one of those early deacons and who is like kind of teaching the people about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He holds the clothes of Stephen as Stephen is stoned to death. And we see like Stephen, like beautiful sermon. He's just like proclaiming God's goodness as he's dying.
Yeah.
And he's like looking up and he's like, man, I see Jesus and I'm excited to go to Jesus. And like, what a bold faith. But it's not just that Stephen dies. And I think that's one of the things that we will say often, like Stephen dies and the church gets dispersed. Stephen died in such a way that did cause the people to kind of get a little nervous and leave, but also let them leave with a boldness,
Right.
in a confidence in what God was doing.
That's
and
good.
so when they leave Jerusalem, because there's just this intense persecution, they don't just leave and hide.
Right.
They leave with an intentionality of taking Jesus wherever they're going. They kind of go all over the place. And then that guy, Saul, is going
To find them
Yeah,
where they go.
he's trying to figure out where they went.
He's trying to go to the ends of the earth.
Yes, and he's going to persecute them, and as he's on the way to get them, he encounters Jesus. His life is changed, and then he ends up traveling all over the world as he knows it. And we see in his life, he goes to so many uniquely diverse places and crosses continents until by the end of his life he ends up in Rome. Just last year, I had the privilege of going to many of the places that Paul went to visit ancient Ephesus and Philippi and Corinth and Athens and Cyprus and Crete and Rhodes and so many of these places and Rome where Paul went to, and walk through these and see how distinguishable, how different each city was, how much Paul was going to have to learn a new culture, break down barriers that existed to the gospel in those places, and eventually die as a prisoner for the sake of the gospel, because he took that commission of Jesus so seriously. So once he encountered Jesus, and it's not to say that every single one of us need to spend our lives just traveling from place to place. That was a unique call on Paul's life.
He also had no wife and no kids.
Yeah.
And he mentions that specifically as
Yeah.
being the reason he's able to
Right.
do those things.
Right. And not to say that people with a family can't
Right.
be involved in foreign missions.
Okay.
But, because certainly there are plenty of people who do that. But he did have this unique freedom. And he mentions that of like, I've got nothing to hold me back.
Yeah.
Inflation matters too, y'all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Same place as that.
Yeah, sometimes just those practicals, and but yeah, I think all throughout the New Testament we see this call to the nations.
Okay, so did it start New Testament or is it in the entire Bible?
No, it's all
No.
over.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as followers of Jesus, we are very quick to point to the New Testament.
Right.
But throughout the Bible, there was always this heart for the nation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget because we see this kind of development of this particular nation of Israel, which is beautiful. It was the chosen nation through which the Messiah was going to come,
Right.
and there were these unique promises to them so that the Messiah could come. But it's easy to overlook that, like from the very beginning in Genesis, it was
Genesis 12.
it's just like as God gives this promise to Abraham, it's for all nations. It's so that all nations can look and see God's glory on display through this eventual Messiah, so that all nations would be saved. And remembering that, like,
I think we can take it even further back than that, but
all the way to the garden,
all the way to the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just through your seed, and that's all people.
Well, and I mean, when we just consider that we're all one lineage,
Right.
like we are. The world is it's a diverse group of people. We have different cultures, ethnicities, and nations, and socioeconomic statuses, and whatever we might put. but we're all one family line, right? Like and so when we just follow the progression of Scripture, it's we are all designed by, made by, and loved by God. Some people have rejected that love, and so some people don't know the fullness of the story of what God has done and was willing to do for us.
Yeah.
And so we are called to go and proclaim the gospel to people.
All right.
You know, even sometimes in uncomfortable, frustrating, scary situations.
Speaking of frustrating situations, or maybe uncomfortable,
Yeah.
John, share your experience with us. God's heart for the nations is evident throughout Scripture. How did God start to work in your heart for the nations?
Yeah, so I became a believer at a fairly young age, and I would hear about this, and it was easy in my mind just just think of missionary as just somebody overseas.
Okay.
And God gave me an opportunity to get involved in some missions trips from a fairly young age. I was able to do projects at different cities across the United States and go and love on people and serve people and things like that. And I got to see, okay, there's the domestic side of missions, of going to places, but I really did want to experience, okay, what is foreign missions all about? And in my mind, I was expecting I'm doing the little stuff, but I got to experience the big game. And I think I probably, maybe in almost an unhealthy way, was exalting it. I don't know if I'm really serious about Jesus, and if I haven't gotten on a plane somewhere. So every time,
Thanks for sharing that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And every time I saw an opportunity, a trip that was coming up, I'd just be God, can I go on this? And I would pray, and it blew me away, because every time I prayed about one, God was like, nope. And it was just clear. It was just no. And I was like, come on, when can I go on? I knew people who would go on. I was like, when do I get to do my thing? I was in seminary, and every time they offered a trip, I would look, and God would just be like, no. And one of my friends said that they were looking at going on this trip to somewhere in the Middle East, and I was like, I haven't even heard of that trip. And they're like, oh yeah, it's not publicized. I just got an email, and I was like, all right. I had nothing to do, and I was like, there's a missions office there on the
nothing to do.
Yeah. No, just on that day.
Accessible.
On that day. I was just I had time between my next class, and so I was like, well, I'll go over to the missions office with you. And they were like, yeah, I'm going to read up on it. And so they went to the missions office, and there at the desk they had this paper, and they're like, here's the information about the trip. They're like, you can't take it anywhere because it was to a place that you can't be like, I'm going as a missionary.
Gotcha.
And so they're like, you can read this and you have to return it. You can't take it. And so I was sitting there. I was like, well, I have nothing. I'm not just going to sit here in silence. And my friend, I was like, well, just read it out loud. I'm interested to hear what God might take you to do. And so they read it out loud. And I'm just telling you, it wasn't on my radar at all. God was just like, you're going. And I was like, God, there were a lot of places that
Okay.
one that I'm not even allowed to publicly talk about, wasn't what I was thinking. Can I get a little different step in? But God just started opening up the doors, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking. It wasn't extremely organized. I was going to go work with some missionaries who were already there, but it was pretty much buy a plane ticket and show up.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I remember going over there. And by the way, my friend ended up not going. They were like,
What's your? I'm saying I want to hear this, because missions, and were your family okay with this? Were they fine with that?
So I was, how old was I? I was probably around 20 at the time.
Okay.
I think I was older than that, maybe 22. Anyway, I was. No, I was older than that. 23, 24.
I asked.
I can't do math.
Yeah, I see.
Apparently. I was 25. I have gone all around.
Oh, wow.
I was 25.
Okay, because I think that's a big
You
still
sound
for
confident
people.
now, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know the year.
I think that can be a holdup for some people because people are concerned with what the families think about it.
Yeah. Okay, so I was an adult. And
License and
we're just
everything.
gonna generically. I was an adult person.
He had his license. people.
That's right. And funny thing is, I had never flown anywhere on a plane to this point. I had been on a plane one time, completely different story, to go skydiving. That was the only other
Okay.
time I had been on a plane. So I'd never landed on a plane to this point. And so I prayed about it. God made it really clear to go. And I remember calling up my parents, and I was like, "Hey, I want you to know that God's leading me to do this." And it was going to be 10 weeks, so it was kind of a longer period of time, at least in my mind, a longer period of time. And so I was like, "I feel like God's calling me to do this. I just want you to know. I hope I have your support." And I remember my mom saying, she said, "Well, if I made a list of countries that I wouldn't want you to go to, top 5, that makes the list." And she was like, "But at least it's number 5 on the list." And so I appreciated the humor in that. But I was very blessed to have parents to continue to have parents who are very understanding of God's call as God's call. And so they were supportive of it. Not all my family was. My mama, my grandmother, she was not happy. She told my mom, she was like, "You tell him he can't go." And mom was like, "He is a grown man." And I had to tell my mama, I was like, "Look, I know that God called me. And so if the plane goes down and I don't even step foot over there, I want you to know that I am so confident that this is what I'm supposed to do. That the outcome doesn't matter."
That's great.
And so I went. I had a lot of people praying for me. Of course, we put up a lot of safeguards of just being wise about like communication and things like that. I spent 10 weeks in this country. Tons of stories I could tell. But there were a couple things that stood out to me. One was it was so instrumental in my growth. I went over there and I was like, this top 5 country in my mom's mind. I'm like, I'm by the end of the summer, everybody's gonna be saved. Again, I still had this kind of dreamer mentality of it. I was just like, all right, get ready, country. Everybody's getting saved, revival. And like, I got there and I realized so much of what God was calling me to do was the same stuff He called me to do here. So I had a job there. I used my job as an opportunity to build relationships with people. I built those relationships and intentionally share the gospel with people. Now, in the country that I was in, there were times that it made me a little nervous. Like I had to be careful exactly how I worded some things. I was legitimately told at times, like, don't go to this place or they'll kill you, and things like that. And so there were some real like, be wise as you're going about this, but also an inherent danger that I had to accept. But the baseline of it that I found was, even in this place where like there were some people who don't like you and stuff like that, what I found was people were people. And when I loved on them well and genuinely tried to get to know them and care for them, I had the opportunity to share the gospel. And the whole country didn't get saved, but a lot of what I got to do was planting seeds. Just getting Bibles into people's hands, talking with people about the truth and the freedom that Jesus is willing to provide. But I saw that, like, okay, I had this idea like missions is just out there. And when I came back, my heart for missions was so much stronger because I realized, okay, I don't, and I know this entire episode is about like, why do we go? But I also found that like, I don't have to hop on a plane to be involved in missions.
Right.
And so for some people, there is going to be a call to hop on a plane. I think it's really valuable for many people to at some point go over there, because I think there's some lessons.
I'm about to say, you gotta bring it down. What do you think it's?
I think most people are going to go in like I did with it. All right, I'm going to go make a huge difference in this other country.
Okay.
And
Very
the reality
decent.
is, right? Yeah, it's like I'm the missing piece,
Right.
and you're probably not. Like
That, or there's an anxiety of feeling like that.
Right,
Even if it's like, man, I don't think I'm going to be good at that. There's still that anxiety of like, is this what they're expecting me to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
That pressure. That can, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think what I found for most people when they go, it's like a fire gets lit, and they realize like I can do this at home. I'm supposed to do this at home.
Yeah.
And so it almost like helps. And so I encourage most people, if they have the opportunity, and certainly if they are called by God, like it's something to pray through. But if people have the opportunity, I do encourage people, go check it out, because there's some things that often are done in people's hearts that they bring back home with them. And also, for us as a church, we also recognize that like sometimes it's not just the person who's going, it's like we as a church get to support missions in such a variety of ways, sometimes by the people who are going on teams that we might send, but sometimes by people who are staying here and continuing to carry out the tasks here, or praying for, or sometimes financially giving toward trips to make them happen. So my experience in a foreign country all those years ago was so instrumental. I still get to look back. I look on that place so fondly. I was single at the time. It was a little bit just more practical in some ways to go. Like I didn't have young children to like put into that situation. I didn't have a wife to put into that situation with me, and so there were some practical realities that made it a little bit more realistic for me to be able to go.
Sure.
But I'm so glad that I got the opportunity. It's not, and it was hard at times. Like there were plenty of times when I was just like, God, I want to go home. I want to be back in my bed and in my place. Like sometimes it was I don't like the weather. Sometimes it was just like I'm lonely, and sometimes it was like I'm scared. There was one day that I was there, and there's just this big explosion. It ended up being like nothing nefarious. It was it actually got so hot that a massive gas tank exploded kind of near my walk home, but I was just like, all right, little nervous here, God, but God was so faithful through it, and as I said, I also had to recognize that if I didn't come home from that, He was still faithful. It was still His call.
It's good.
God is still good.
Dale, share your experience with missions. Just how did God start working in your heart?
Yeah. So before I got to this church, the last church that I was a part of was very intentional on missions, in the sense that they had several missionaries that were sent out from the church, and several missionaries that would just come in that weren't necessarily sent from the church, who would just come in to like explain their missions that were supported by the church. And so I got a chance to listen to many different missionaries come over and their stories of what the things that were being done and so on and so forth. And honestly, that like kind of lit a fire in my heart, not necessarily to go, but just to like, man, this is beautiful. We need these people to go. And for me, missionaries, that's what, they were the people that were going to go. And like, I never considered like, how could I be a missionary, or, how can I get involved in missions as far as going? It was always just how can I help support these missionaries that are going and the things that they're doing, and keep up with it. So I loved that. And then in coming here, and John could probably tell you that the first thing that I asked to him was like, hey, what do we do with missions here? Because that did become a big thing in my heart of like, man, how are missions done? Because we're called to not just do like, we should have a healthy mission here, but we are also called to go to the ends of the earth. To his point earlier, like we're all called to that. And not necessarily that we all need to fly but like the church as a whole
Right. Yeah.
is called to that. And so just saying like, oh, well, this local, like this is all that I'm going to do. That's kind of
Right.
just going to be it. And at that point in time, we did support missionaries.
And I think that's a really important thing to kind of note, because even as we're talking, and we're going to talk a decent amount about short-term missions, and by that I mean like under a few months. When you go, you're not like just moving somewhere. But there are long-term missionaries who go and they move somewhere and they are permanently there, and
family and all.
Right. Yeah. And we have the privilege of being able to support many missionaries who are all around the world as a church. And
how does that look? How do we do that?
Yeah, so we're part of something called the Cooperative Program. And what the Cooperative Program does, in a very simplified term, is it helps to send missionaries all around the world. In North America, all around these, like with church planting in cities that need churches, but all over the world. We were talking just a little while ago. There's
the International Mission Board alone. That's not North American Mission Board. That's the International Mission
so
Board.
it's kind of
outside
two
of the
parts.
U.S. There's two parts, right? And that part has 3,600 missionaries in 155 different countries.
That's awesome.
So, I mean.
And so by us being a part of the Cooperative Program, we have a part in those 3,600 missionaries and those 150 countries.
Right.
And many of them in places you can't talk about, reaching unreached people or countries that are hostile to the gospel. And let's not pretend there aren't places that are hostile.
Right.
Not every place is like, oh, this is going to be easy, a fun little trip. There's plenty of places that people are risking a lot going to.
Absolutely.
That maybe each of us individually doesn't get the experience of going to. But we want to be a light in a dark place, and so what we do is every time somebody gives a regular tithe here, a portion of that is taken out and it's sent to the Cooperative Program. So literally, when people are giving here, they're not just giving toward our local ministries; they're giving toward international missions, and we just kind of have that percentage just kind of set up, and it's sent on. And that helps fund those missionaries who are all around the world. And if it wasn't for that, and not just us alone, and I think that's one of the beauties of the body of Christ, not just our local body here, but cooperating with other churches so that we can do more together than what we do alone. And so in that first conversation with Dale, that was one of the things we talked about, was that is one of the most important things that we can do in missions is be a part of this, be a part of something bigger than just us. Because it can feel really cool to know we're sending these, but when we know we get to be a part of something that is so much bigger than ourselves. And we get to work together with other churches to be the church. And I think that's a beautiful picture of the church cooperating together. And so
almost to the point that we talked about in the last podcast of the unity of the church, the body, and how we're all supposed to be one. And that is the way that we all work together as one well-oiled machine.
But then kind of going forward from there, obviously I had a heart for missions. Dale shared with me his heart for missions, not exclusively domestic missions and not exclusively things within our own country, but also finding what our spot could be in international work. And
interestingly enough for me, again, when I started off, my mind was missionaries are doing this. My mind wasn't how can we go? It's how can we find missionaries to support people that are doing it? And then God was like, but y'all could just do it.
I love it.
And so it was it was really cool. I had been praying about, okay, God, what does it look like for us to have a greater involvement in this? And maybe greater is not even the right term. Maybe more tangible involvement. To take some of our people and give them the opportunity to go and, it's one thing to describe food to somebody, it's another thing to let somebody taste it.
I know that to be true.
Yeah. And so okay, how do we get people to taste this? And so we began praying about, okay, where could we go? We had to look at our practical means. Like we're not a church of a lot of financial means, and so what's practical? Also, we wanted to make things as accessible as reasonably possible for individual people who are going to have to invest into a trip to be able to go. There's practical things that we just can't avoid. If you're flying somewhere, the planes don't let us fly for free. The places that we need to stay, the food that we need to be able to get, and the ministry that we're going to be doing in these areas. So our first kind of dive in was at the time we had somebody who had previously served as a missionary in Belize.
A longer term missionary.
Wow. For been done some work there for years, and so we wanted to kind of find a place where we could dive in a little bit more, build some long-term relationships. And so we took this, what we called an exploratory trip. And I was like, hey, reach out to Dale.
That's a nice word.
Yeah, it was like in 1 week.
We explored the majority of Belize.
Yeah, we traveled.
Excluding just a partial piece at the top.
Yeah. So we kind of like.
Did that piece not matter?
We just didn't have the connections there.
Follow up.
No, so we like went down there, rented a vehicle. 3 of us, we were traveling light. We were on every day was a new place, and we went to some remote places. I mean, some of it all the way back out where there's no cell phone coverage anymore. They'd be like, well, if you have a phone, like you can go up on that hill over there. You might get something like a little bit of service, like no running electricity, no running water. Like here's the outhouse for this part of the community. And I mean, we're grateful they at least had the. But it was.
Now, that's a culture shock.
It was like
a stream for baths.
Yeah. I mean, you want a bath? Go out on the stream. And Dale and I both we laughed because we almost romanticized one aspect of going. It was we knew we were gonna be sleeping in a hammock and because they have hotels where we're going. We're gonna be staying in somebody's home that doesn't even know we're gonna show up that day, and so it's just going. Like I remember, just as Jesus was like, "Hey, disciples, go out and just count on the hospitality of others." We had to do that.
That's right.
And so we show up and we're like hooking up a hammock, and we're like, "Oh, this is gonna be so great. We're sleeping in a hammock." It's not. It's some of the worst sleep I've ever gotten. I realized the hammock is comfortable for about an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
And then.
I remember in my mind, because as we were like going back here, we're talking to one of the guys from there that's kind of like a big part of it. And he's like, yeah, people come back here and do this all the time. And they'll stay like for a week back here and then like go back because it's such a far drive back. And we get back there and I'm like, I could probably do a week back here in a hammock. And so I slept in the hammock for one night. And I was like, I don't know how.
Yeah, it was a good learn. But like, I mean, we got to sit and eat with people, build relationships, and we in all these different villages we went to, all these different communities, and to keep it from getting too long on that specific one, we were able to build those relationships, and then the next year we took a team down, and we were able to serve people. We kind of went to 2 places, one down in kind of southern Belize and one in northern Belize.
That was the first year we just went. You took a team to San Pedro. The second year we went south and then north.
I think you're right. I think that's correct. But all in all, we've gone back every year since up to this past summer, taking teams. I think the one time just focusing on the north, and then other times kind of doing both the north and the south of the country,
Right.
and kind of getting to focus in on those things. And so getting to get our church an opportunity, but even when we go, there's so much that it's not just the team that's going. And I can tell you God stories of how he provided time. I mean, sometimes one year we got there and like all of our plans fell through, and God just provided exactly like a beautiful plan. And long story, but God just provided. That was kind of the takeaway. God will provide. But seeing what God has done in people's lives, two of the people who have gone, like just they're going, early in the just kind of starting to come to church here. God opened up their hearts, their lives, their eyes to the power of the gospel in their lives. And just a few weeks back, we were able to baptize one of those guys who, like, that was kind of his way that God brought him to a place of salvation. So incredible stories we've got to see from the people who have gone and grown, but also with the church. There's a unique excitement for people getting to know, okay, we get to be a part of this, and here's something tangible. And we couldn't do it without, as I said, we sometimes romanticize the people who get on the plane, but like when I'm out, like you've hopped in and preached, and which you do on a fairly regular occasion, but like if it wasn't for people who are continuing to administer the church here, then can't send people there. And so people who are praying, people who are giving, people who are taking on particular roles, so that as we send, as we go, we can do so effectively.
Yeah. Now I guess it gets me thinking about when people support missions, or even are going on the mission. And we kind of alluded to this a little bit already, the big takeaway. But I do think when people think about those missions or mission field or those things, when we say Life Church, go to your mission field, what is the main goal in all of these things? What's the main takeaway?
So when we go, especially to Belize, the last few years, the goal wasn't to go just save people. And like even as we were going to Guatemala this year, the idea isn't just to go save people. Like we're going to go spread the gospel, and we got opportunities to love on kids and such, and maybe even spread the gospel a little bit down when we went to Belize. The trips to Belize help us focus a little bit more on what it is to go, because it's to love people. And like when we go down there, we're specifically not going to just share the gospel. We're specifically going to partner with the rest of the body of Christ there, and to love them, and to help them to know that they're not alone in this.
Yeah, and I want to kind of just give a caveat to that. So when we're like working with churches in Belize, one, we have kind of, our approach has been find a local body or a local group of believers, partner alongside them, support them, lift them up, encourage them, help them. And so we've run like kids camps and done other like physical projects down there. Now at those kids camps, obviously we're presenting the gospel, we're proclaiming the truth of God. But it's not, our primary goal isn't like, okay, we could go down here and save the country. It's let's go down here and support the work of local churches and strengthen them up, because they're going to be here after we leave. And so it's not just what can we do and look at us and let's leave Life Church stamp on everything. It is, hey, here's a local church. We want you to be able to do your thing more effectively. We want you to know that you're loved. We want you to know you're prayed for by brothers and sisters back in Savannah, Georgia.
Which to that I think is a beautiful thing, because when on our trip down, the first trip we went, what we saw when we went to where we did the VBS camp the first year, and then the second or the last 2 years, we've kind of been at other churches we had connections with because of that. When we went there, what we saw was like other organizations had kind of come and just put their stamp on their thing, like the shirts that they were wearing. And I'm not going to go into those organizations, but they had just put their stamp on the shirts and gave them to them. And so when we went down with the with the plan of giving them their own ministry. Like, we
Right.
don't want just Life Church kids, you know. We love our Life Church kids here because there are Life Church kids here, but it was their kids. And so we were like, hey, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want your organization to be?
Our approach to what we were doing there was making sure we didn't do a colonization.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, not come in and be like, hey, now this is us. It's this is you, and we love you, and we're going to help support you. And it's not about us; it's about Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been our approach. You know, now this year we'll take a trip to Guatemala. We're going to be doing water filters, sharing the gospel through that, supporting a local church down there. And so, you know, coming up after that, I'm sure we'll do a podcast on kind of what God allows to happen there. But yeah, that's kind of our approach to missions. Why not just breaking down barriers here, but breaking down barriers, building bridges all around the world is so important to us.
That's good.
Yeah.
What are we taking on those highways? The gospel. That's
right.
what it is. All right. Well, I like you guys, and I thank you guys for joining us and sharing your experiences. I think that's been really helpful. And hopefully, whatever your experience is with missions, or if you feel that God's working on your heart, I just want to encourage you, take the next step.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
Maybe supporting the mission or going nationally on mission or internationally, so to speak. But I will say this, as for now, Life Church, you know what the time is. Please go to your mission field.